Micah Parsons just said something that could change the entire future of the NFL. And if you think this is just another offseason quote, think again, because hidden inside his comments is a condition that could decide whether he stays in Green Bay or walks away from the franchise entirely. And here's the real twist most fans completely missed. This isn't just about one player. This could be the beginning of a massive international shift that changes how teams are built, where games are played, and even where the next generation of stars choose to compete. Less than a month before free agency, tensions are already rising across the league. And when Parsons stepped in front of reporters at a public event, nobody expected the conversation to explode the way it did. What started as a simple question about the NFL's international future quickly turned into one of the boldest statements from a superstar linebacker in recent memory. Parsons didn't hesitate. He didn't dodge. Instead, he laid out an idea that stunned fans, intrigued league executives, and sparked debates across social media within minutes. He said the NFL should seriously consider creating an international team. Not just more overseas games. Not just expanding fan bases. An actual team representing a city outside the United States. And then he added the line that instantly grabbed headlines everywhere. He said he would be the first player willing to go over and be part of it. That statement alone would be enough to set off speculation, but the timing made it even more explosive. Parsons joined the Packers ahead of the 2025 season after a blockbuster move that already shook the league. And now, just as the team is trying to stabilize its roster and build toward a championship push, their star linebacker is openly discussing a future that might not include Green Bay at all. Fans started asking the same question within seconds. Is this the beginning of an exit strategy? The NFL itself is fueling the fire. The league has aggressively pushed international expansion, scheduling a record number of games overseas and committing to even more in the coming seasons. Commissioner Roger Goodell has made it clear that international growth is not just an experiment anymore. It is a long-term vision. And during a recent interview, Goodell openly acknowledged that international franchises are a real possibility someday if the global market continues to grow. When Parsons mentioned modeling an international team after something like the Notre Dame structure, he wasn't joking. He was outlining a concept that blends tradition with innovation, creating a unique identity that exists outside traditional divisions while still competing at the highest level. That kind of thinking suggests he has spent real time considering this future, and that realization is what has Packers fans both fascinated and nervous at the same time. But there is another layer to this story that makes it even more complicated. Parsons is currently recovering from a major injury that sidelined him late in the season. Despite that setback, he has remained deeply involved in roster discussions and team culture, trying to help the Packers build a perfect lineup moving forward. That shows commitment, leadership, and a desire to win. Yet at the same time, his openness about leaving under the right circumstances introduces a new level of uncertainty. Inside the locker room, reactions have reportedly been mixed. Some teammates admire his honesty and ambition, viewing his comments as a sign of leadership and vision. Others worry that public speculation about leaving can disrupt team chemistry during one of the most important stretches of the offseason. And then there are the fans, divided between excitement about being part of a historic global movement and fear of losing one of the most dynamic defensive players in football. The bigger question is what this says about the evolving mindset of modern NFL stars. Players today think globally. They see opportunities beyond traditional markets. They understand the power of branding, international exposure, and building legacies that extend beyond one city or even one country. Parsons' comments might not be about leaving tomorrow. They might be about shaping the future landscape of the league itself. The NFL's international push has already changed how teams approach scheduling and fan engagement. Stadiums in Europe have sold out faster than many domestic games. Merchandise sales overseas continue to climb. Youth leagues in multiple countries are growing at a rapid pace. When Goodell talks about potential international franchises, he is not speaking hypothetically for publicity. He is responding to real numbers and real momentum. And here is where the curiosity gap gets even deeper, because insiders believe the league is quietly studying several cities as potential expansion markets. London has long been mentioned as a frontrunner. Germany's recent games have drawn massive crowds. There are even whispers about markets in Asia eventually entering the conversation. If that happens, the demand for star power to anchor those teams will be enormous. And who better than a player already publicly willing to lead that movement? But before fans jump to conclusions, it is important to remember that Parsons' condition for leaving is not something the Packers can control. It depends entirely on the NFL creating an international team first. That means the timeline could stretch for years. It also means his comments might be more about planting a seed than announcing an immediate departure. Still, words matter. And in today's media environment, every statement becomes part of a larger narrative. Analysts have begun debating whether his openness signals dissatisfaction with the current roster or simply excitement about the future of the sport. Some believe he is using his platform to push innovation. Others argue he is preparing fans for a potential exit long before it becomes reality. Meanwhile, Green Bay's front office faces a delicate balancing act. They want to support a star player's vision while also maintaining confidence among fans that the team remains committed to building around him. The franchise has invested heavily in creating a competitive defense, and losing a player of Parsons' caliber would reshape their entire strategy. There is also the financial dimension. An international franchise would need marquee players to attract audiences and sponsors. Contracts could be structured differently. Marketing opportunities could expand exponentially. Parsons' willingness to be part of that experiment positions him as a pioneer, but it also raises questions about loyalty and long-term team identity. What makes this story even more compelling is how it intersects with the broader transformation of professional sports. Leagues across the world are exploring global expansion. Fans consume content across borders more than ever before. Younger audiences connect with athletes as personalities rather than just representatives of a single city. Parsons' comments reflect that shift, and whether you love or hate the idea, it is impossible to ignore the momentum behind it. At the same time, there are legitimate challenges. Travel logistics would be complicated. Competitive balance could become an issue. Traditional rivalries might lose some of their intensity if teams are spread across continents. And players would need to adjust to different cultures, time zones, and lifestyles. Parsons acknowledged those challenges, but emphasized the potential benefits of creating something entirely new. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain. The conversation around international expansion is no longer theoretical. It is happening right now, and star players are beginning to shape the narrative. Parsons' willingness to speak openly may encourage others to share their views, creating a ripple effect that pushes the league closer to a decision. Fans are now watching every move, every interview, every social media post, looking for clues about whether this is simply a visionary idea or the first step toward a major career transition. And while the Packers remain focused on building a championship roster, the possibility of losing a cornerstone defender in the future adds pressure to every decision they make this offseason. Yet there is also an opportunity here. If the league does move toward international expansion, teams that embrace the change early could benefit from increased exposure and new fan bases. Green Bay itself could become part of a global narrative, positioning the franchise as a bridge between traditional NFL culture and the next era of football. The injury that ended Parsons' season has not slowed his influence off the field. He continues to communicate with teammates, offer strategic insights, and remain visible in community events. That leadership presence suggests he still cares deeply about the organization, which makes his international ambitions feel less like a rejection of Green Bay and more like an expansion of his personal vision for the sport. As analysts continue to debate his comments, one question keeps surfacing. What happens if the NFL announces serious plans for an international franchise sooner than expected? Would Parsons immediately request a move? Would the Packers try to negotiate a partnership or special arrangement? Would other stars follow his lead and volunteer for a new global team? The answers remain uncertain, but the speculation alone has transformed a quiet offseason into one of the most fascinating storylines of the year. And here is the part that many fans overlook. Parsons' proposal reflects confidence in the league's future growth. Instead of fearing change, he is embracing it. That mindset could inspire younger players to think beyond traditional career paths, potentially reshaping free agency dynamics for years to come. Of course, not everyone agrees with his vision. Some former players argue that expanding internationally could dilute the identity of the NFL. Others worry that travel demands could increase injury risks or reduce recovery time. Traditionalists believe the league should focus on strengthening domestic markets rather than chasing global expansion. These debates highlight how polarizing the idea remains. Still, the numbers tell a compelling story. International games continue to sell out. Television ratings overseas are climbing. Social media engagement from global audiences has skyrocketed. The financial incentives alone make expansion an attractive possibility for league executives. Parsons' comments simply bring a human face to a business strategy that has been quietly evolving for years. Meanwhile, Packers fans find themselves caught between pride and uncertainty. Pride because their star linebacker is at the center of one of the biggest conversations in sports. Uncertainty because the same conversation could eventually lead him away from Green Bay. That emotional tension is what makes this story so powerful. As free agency approaches, every rumor will feel amplified. Every negotiation will carry added weight. And every statement from Parsons will be analyzed for hidden meaning. Whether his international dream becomes reality or remains a fascinating what-if scenario, the impact of his words is already reshaping how fans think about the future of the NFL. Before this story reaches its next chapter, there is one question that every fan needs to consider because it could define the next decade of football. Should the NFL create an international team, even if it means reshaping traditions that have existed for generations? Because if the answer becomes yes, then players like Micah Parsons may not just be participants in the league's evolution. They might be the architects of a new era. And that leads to the final thought. Football has always been about adaptation. Rule changes, strategic innovation, cultural shifts. The league we watch today is vastly different from the one that existed 20 years ago. Parsons' comments remind us that the next transformation may not come from a playbook or a draft class. It may come from a bold vision that challenges the boundaries of where football belongs. So now the spotlight turns back to the league, to the Packers organization, and to Parsons himself as fans wait to see whether this idea fades into off-season noise or becomes the spark that launches the NFL into truly global territory. And while nobody can predict exactly how this story ends, one thing is undeniable. The conversation has begun, and the future of football might never look the same again.